Put your hand
That's
up.
what I thought.
Okay, we're good.
That's what they were just telling us.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Eustis City Hall. This is a meeting of the Community Redevelopment Agency. It is 5:30 p.m., March the 19th, 2020. Mary, is there a quorum present? Proper notice been given?
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. At this time, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Tom. How are you this evening? Good.
All right, so actually, I will handle the presentation for items 1 and 2 together because they're related. So purchase agreements for the former Florida Hospital Waterman site. So a little history, this was the site formerly of the Florida Hospital Waterman. In 2005, a portfolio of properties was transferred to the Lake Community Foundation. Technically the owner of the property is Lake Eustis Properties, which is associated with the foundation. 2 of the 3 blocks, so the 2 blocks that are currently grass, in 2012 were transferred to the Eustis Partners. It's identified as a catalyst site in our 2008 downtown plan as well as our 2016 redevelopment plan. So this is a property that for many years has been expected to redevelop. Representatives of both ownership groups recently approached the city and asked if the city/CRA was interested in purchasing the property. So some terms for the draft option agreements. Total purchase price is $3 million or $1 million per block, and we secure those agreements with a $100 deposit. The purchase does include impact fee credits, and I'll talk a little bit about those impact fee credits in just a little bit. We commissioned appraisals on the 3 blocks. The appraised value for the 3 blocks is $3,410,000. As part of the purchase agreements, there is a small area of contamination on the corner of the surface parking lot at Bay Street, and that has been monitored for years. It's probably a holdover from before the hospital when there was a gas station and a car dealership there, but there is a small area of contamination. It's been monitored for years. The levels are very low, but there is still some contamination. Recent environmental consultant work said that there's a small area of soil that needs to be removed, and so both ownership groups are crediting us $50,000 back at closing to cover environmental remediation. In addition to some small soil removal, there might be some dewatering, some special regulations for dewatering when it redevelops, and so that $100,000 is to cover that. The good news is, with the small soil removal and with the dewatering restrictions, there are no use restrictions on the property. In other words, there is no impediment to redeveloping the site. If the soil's removed and the dewatering regulations are followed, anything can be built on that site. And so that was great to hear, and we've gotten some good advice from environmental consultants. There is a 135-day due diligence period for us to do, again, due diligence and also set up financing. And then there is a possible 60-day extension of that if we need to do additional due diligence or there's some snags in setting up financing. So setting up the CRA financing, it's estimated that the debt service on the purchase will be about $200,000 per year. That's based on a 20-year term and based on 3%. We felt 3% was pretty conservative, and we think we can probably get better than 3%. And we'll issue a request to banks to see what kind of rates we can get. But 20 years at 3% is $200,000 per year. We feel that there's sufficient revenue to cover the debt service. There are specific numbers in your staff report, but there is sufficient revenue to cover the debt service. So the goal for the property is to redevelop the property. So the CRA our recommendation would be for the CRA to make the property available for redevelopment. State statute says if a CRA is going to dispose of property, that has to be advertised publicly. It has to be made available publicly. And so we'll start preparing the announcement to let folks know that the property is available. How that looks, we'll have to talk internally about RFP, RFQ, just a simple solicitation advertisement, but staff will start preparing that to get that out on the street. And then we have had recent interest from several parties, including a hotelier, and also interest from several developers. So the reason we've gotten some interest is there's a whole possible incentive framework related to this property. So it is in the CRA. That means CRA assistance is available. That'll be negotiated on a case-by-case basis. CRA assistance can take the form of writing down the price of the land, or a developer paying full purchase price, but then asking for some assistance through the CRA based on the taxes that are generated, the incremental tax value generated. There are also some city fee waivers available through Development Services Department and an economic development program where we can waive some fees. There are also, as I mentioned, some impact fees available as part of the sale. The former development was a hospital, and that hospital had impact on the community, whether it was water and sewer or transportation. And so there were impact fee credits because of what was on the property previously. And then in addition, the owners did purchase some school impact fee credits when there was consideration for developing it as residential. And so those impact fee credits transfer with the sale of the property. And so we'll be able to offer those to a developer if they develop residential on the property. And then finally, a program that's available, it is in a federal opportunity zone. We've been getting more and more interest in that. What that means is someone who invests in a federal opportunity zone can defer capital gains taxes, and they can also eliminate some of those taxes depending on how long they hold the project. So it's a great project to spur investment, and then to get investors to hold on to that property to see those tax benefits. So that's what I have. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you might have. We also have Tom Hoffmeister and Jack Prickett here, who are representatives of the Lake Community Foundation.
Okay. Any questions of Tom or any of the gentlemen? Marie, anything? Bob?
I would assume somebody else start this, or?
Karen, you have anything, ma'am?
It's 3 sites, right?
It is 3 city blocks. It is the 2 grassy blocks and then the surface parking lot.
Okay, and the appraisal is on all 3?
The appraisal is on all 3. So to break it down for you, the appraised value for the 2 grassy blocks was $1,115,000 for each block. The third block, the surface parking lot, was $1,180,000.
Okay, I'm ready, I'm sorry. Just looking at the data, obviously this is a great idea. Why is it that they can't make a go of it? I mean, even if we gave them, I guess it's been around for so many years. I'm glad it's coming to our desk or the dais here tonight, but what has happened? I'd love to hear from them about why it's taken, 8 years to get to this point, and why should we take it on if they can't make a go of it? Not that I'm opposed to it. I just understand this.
All of them aren't here, but I can answer for our conversations.
Would you step to the microphone,
Yes, sir.
please?
You were waiting for that.
I'm not
I've been waiting for that.
Obviously, these are gentlemen that are been in Eustis a long time, for the more polite way to say it. They're at different points in their lives and their career, and they don't have the desire to be involved in actively marketing and developing the property. So they approached us the city's been working with them at least since Tom and I have been here to actively market and try and get it sold. Obviously, interest has now picked up on it here in recent months, and at their points in their lives, they would prefer to just liquidate it and put it in the hands of somebody that can make something happen on it. And obviously, as Tom indicated, we've had a lot of interest on it here in the last several months, and given that it's under our control, we can make things happen much more effectively and efficiently than the private sector could.
I like the idea, just to me, it sounds like we're compensating the owners for their property for not being able to sell it for 8 years. It doesn't make a lot of financial sense to me, because then we have all the credits, and we're gonna lose money, obviously, when we sell it to somebody else to be able to build on it, from what it looks like to me. So even though I've really been pushing also to make some sort of judgment or some sort of a decision on that whole property, but why are we paying that whole price when we know they're not able to sell it? It would be great if the two of them could talk. I don't know who you are. Must be,
Tom, Jack, do you
Oh, Tom.
want to say anything? You wanna
oh, there you
address
are. I didn't know who you were.
I guess, did I accurately reflect your position, your guys' position? Yeah, the parking lot is owned by the foundation, and obviously the foundation is just made up of a group of volunteers to manage the foundation, and obviously they're not interested in developing it. Obviously, they can't spend full-time effort in marketing it, and so by putting it in our hands where we have active staff to market and sell and develop, we can obviously, again, do it much more effectively and efficiently.
It just seems like it's way too much money for us to pay for something that we're going to have to make concessions to somebody who decides to develop on that property. So we could be out quite a bit of money. I'm not opposed to doing that deal. It's just amazing that we would actually be compensating them for their inability to be able to sell a property for the last 8 years. And whatever the market rate might be, maybe the market value is way too high, maybe the appraisal is too high. And I think there was some restrictions on what the city would like to see there. So even though that gives us an opportunity because it'll be in our hands, I still don't care for the fact that it seems like we're being sold something that hasn't been able to sell for 8 years, and we probably could have got it at a better price. But that's my thought. I'd love to hear from somebody else.
Well, I always think timing is everything, and I just got the information too about what the appraisal value was, and that was pretty much what I thought it was. But for the last 8 years, I'm one that couldn't understand why they wouldn't work with us before. Why nobody came up with a full purchase price. Well, in real estate, there's a reason. If people don't come up with a full purchase price, it's not really valued at that, or there should be some kind of discount involved in it. And again, my thing is timing is everything. I just feel right now, our world as we know it has changed. And I have people that work in the hospitality industry, and I don't know that they're going to be able to go forward with anything in the crisis that we're in. So I believe we're almost in an emergency declaration. We are nationally. The larger cities have declared emergencies. I just don't feel comfortable at this time. I mean, and really for me, it should be a fire sale at this point. If we're going to do this and commit to this, we may have to sit on it for 5 to 10 years. That's all I gotta say.
You have anything?
Well, I was thinking if we're going to spend CRA funds to purchase the property, and I think I heard you say that when the developers come, there's a possibility that they may be able to have access to CRA funds also.
So as part of a redevelopment, I think the assumption has been, whether the current owners own it or the city owns it, that there will be some sort of CRA incentive package involved in developing the property, in redeveloping the property. And what that looks like has to be negotiated on a case-by-case basis, so it's difficult to say exactly what that would be. But I think the assumption all along has been there will be some sort of CRA assistance involved.
So it could take quite a bit of CRA funds to be able to accomplish this.
Depending on what the developer needs and what the developer is asking for, it can take many forms, and we just don't know what those are at this point. But I expect CRA assistance will be involved in getting the property redeveloped.
The only,
I need to clarify one thing, though. while there's CRA assistance that may be requested, keep in mind, the CRA agreements we've done in the past is not from existing CRA revenues. So the current CRA revenue stream will not be affected. Any assistance on this project that we would give any developers would be from CRA revenues generated specifically by that project. So the existing revenue stream won't change. So if the developer comes in and they want a $500,000 incentive, it would have to be generated and paid from the taxes created by their project. So the other CRA revenues coming in to the fund right now would not be affected.
The only concern I have about it, I'm fully in agreement. I think it's a good idea, considering that it's been just sitting there for years. Is that, again, is the timing, and are we sure that with the current state of things, that we should make a decision that we don't know the future? So that's the only concern that I have.
Ms. Gale, do you have anything?
That's my concern because of the timing right now.
Okay.
And just, if I could add, I think it'd be great for us to get a breakdown on what that would cost us. You know, what it would be for CRA if some developer came in, and obviously, everybody asks us for CRA monies for reimbursement. So by the time we finish all this, what do the scenarios look like? I mean, what's the worst and what's the best case for us? Are we going to be selling it for $500,000, be $500,000 out of our budget, and then we get the CRA, then we lose some of the CRA tax revenues? You know what I'm saying? It's hard for us as a city commission to make the decision like this without the information that projects into the future what our gains or losses might be on this.
Sure, and it's difficult to project that because it's all going to be project specific. So if someone comes in and says, I'm investing $30 million, then we would calculate what type of return we would get on that investment, and we could calculate over time what the CRA can afford to invest. And so it's project specific. It depends on what's being built, what it's valued at, and what the return is over time on that. But I understand what you're saying, but not knowing the specifics of a project, it's difficult to give you a scenario.
How about the hotel? Just kind of some little projections about what you think might be able to happen as a result of a hotel coming in.
At this point, right now, the discussions we've had is the potential investment of the hotel is going to be about $16 million. Now, looking at our current CRA tax rate, that would generate over $200,000 a year in new CRA revenues just from that one project. Now, let's say they come in and want X amount of that. Keep in mind, the past agreements that we've done on CRA have been percentage agreements. We're not giving away 100% of the new annual revenues on the CRA. So even if they say we want $1 million, and that's $100,000 over 10 years, we're still seeing a net increase in the CRA of $100,000 a year in new revenue, in addition to all the ancillary new developments that would happen. Each project is an investment, so we're investing $100,000 a year to create this new catalyst site that's going to be a magnet to draw in new developments to fill in the third lot over here. And at that point, it's going to allow us to do further and bring more energy and synergy to the downtown area. So keep in mind, even if we do negotiate an agreement, there still will be a net benefit to the city in new CRA revenues based on that project and based how we've structured agreements.
Do you think the hotel would still have the same, well, a lot of them will be hit hard, so financially, do you think we would still have the same interest with the current state of things and how hotels are being hit so hard now?
There was a conversation with the hotel people 2 days ago, and they are full steam ahead.
So what's our net loss? What do you think
There
it
is
would
no
sell
net,
for?
at this point, there is no net loss.
No, I mean, if we did buy the property, what do you think the city could get for it in return? Certainly not $1 million.
Well, keep in mind, there's more than $1 million in value in each of those lots. The school tax credit, right now, the appraised value of the property is total is $3.4 million and change. There's also $180,000 in school tax credits. There's also probably a couple $100,000 in transportation credits. So we have an asset of almost $3.8 million that we're paying $3 million for. All of that is a tangible asset that can be considered as part of any sale of that property. Obviously, I can't come in and say what somebody's going to sell it for. I know this, the lot that we just purchased, that we paid $230,000 for, an interested party as part of another process had that appraised, and the appraised value of that property came in at $440,000. So actually, we did very well on that purchase based on that value. We can't speculate. We can't sit here and say we're going to take a loss. We don't know if we're going to take a loss. We may get past this in the next 60 days, and the economy may regenerate, and we may be off to the races again. We don't know. We can't speculate. What I'm saying right now is we currently have a revenue stream in the CRA that can support the financing of this project, put an asset in our hands that we can control the destiny of the community and make it happen without negatively affecting operations, without negatively affecting the city as a whole, and giving us an opportunity to make something happen. That's the goal of what we've been working for the last 5 years. We're finally at that point we can do it, and that's up to you guys to make that decision.
I still think I think it'd be great, since this is a CRA action, is just to at least have another time, another meeting on this, because I need to have a lot more clear for me, a lot more of the detail clarified for me to understand this, because I just think we're taking a real gamble. And yet, I'm not sure why. We would have a jurisdiction, a responsibility for whatever is planned to build there if it was a private investment. So why not wait for that property to sell at a rate that is a market rate, not a appraised rate, that would make sense for those owners, and then let that developer come to us and ask, well, this is what we want to build a hotel, or we want to build something else. So why don't we do it that way, rather than buy the property? And I'm assuming,
Because you talked about us having jurisdictional authority. We do, and as part of our land use regulations, we do have jurisdictional authority, but our ability to make those decisions are hamstrung by certain laws. We can't make decisions, land use decisions, that violate the Burt-Harris Act. There could be a project that comes in that we don't like, and from a land use purpose, our hands are tied and we have to approve it because of litigation under Burt-Harris and other takings laws. But as a property owner, we don't have that stranglehold. As a property owner, we have free latitude to decide who we sell that property to and what we sell it for. So actually, as the property owner, we have greater ability to control the destiny of the city on those lots than we do as the regulatory body.
I think to some degree, I understand. But I think it'd be very difficult for anybody to come in here who wouldn't have a project that would make economical sense. It'll be hard for us. I don't assume we'd have a 3-tower auto zone in here or advanced auto. So I'm thinking that anything that goes there is going to really be something well marketed and understand what the pluses and the minus might be for their development. So I would think it would be something we'd always like. So I understand your argument. I just think we need some more discussion about it, because I think I need more specifics.
Well, I guess my question is, to prepare for that meeting, what specifics would you be looking for?
Actually, I guess what I'm thinking is it's too much money for the property. I know the appraised value is, I understand that, but I still think it's too much money to pay for the property, especially if it's not marketable. Appraised value, I understand. Marketability is something different, and I'm not sure we're marketable at this point.
Well, obviously, we're currently dealing with the hotel developer for that. I know Tom has had inquiries from 2 other developers interested in the sites. So we're starting to see a pickup in interest in these properties. So I think we're at a crucial point right now that we have the ability to try and make this happen.
I wonder if there's a way of testing the waters. I'm not so sure about the one you mentioned. It's only been in existence a year, I believe. Or the consultants have come together for a year.
Well,
So it's not like a well-known chain or something.
Well, this was a group of investors that formed a specific LLC for this project.
Right.
So that's a common practice in business. You form an LLC for a specific business project. So this isn't anything that we're concerned with given the short tenure of the corporation. The principals that we know that are involved are well-financed and well-experienced in doing projects.
The problem is the city commission doesn't have that knowledge. We don't know who these people are. Is it a Hyatt? Is it, Motel 6? I mean, we have no clue what it would be.
Well, they're dealing it from the standpoint of they can't negotiate with us until we own the property. And the current owners are not interested in dealing with that at this point in time. I think even if the hotel wasn't there, we still have enough interest in other developers that are doing that, but we can't negotiate, we can't make deals on that, not knowing one, what the owners are willing to sell for. So we've got 3 parties that are trying to put together a deal, 4 parties actually, because we have 2 separate ownership groups. So what we're trying to say is by taking the 2 ownership groups out and putting the city between us and the developers, we are simplifying the process by only putting 2 entities at work and trying to make a deal happen.
I understand that. It still sounds to me like it's a bailout for the owners who've had it for 8 years, not been able to move it. But, the rest of the commission can think about it too.
I have a
You're right, I don't
question.
think there's more that anybody could give me, because I just still feel as though the market rate and the appraisal rate are very different.
I have a question. The taxes on these properties, it's $1 million each, 3.4 million. So what's the taxes that they generate per year on those 3 properties?
Well, right now, the property appraiser has them valued at $350,000, which is way too low, in
No.
our opinion.
But how much does it generate in revenues,
What's your tax bill on that,
property taxes?
Jack?
They don't, they're 5.
The foundation is 0. So the parking lot has 0 tax because they're tax exempt. On the partners, I think it's about $10,000 a year. That's total, not just city.
Oh,
So the parking lot, we're taking something that we're deriving no revenue from right now, and if we can get the hotel on there, everything on that property is going to be increment to the CRA. Because right now, it's owned by a tax exempt entity.
I have a question. Do you have a vision for what you want, what you would perceive that property to have on it that would make a difference in our downtown, generate more monies? If you look at draw us a picture, what would you like to see, or what's your vision for this?
I mean, my personal vision, what I think is, and what I've been trying to promote, working with Tom and trying to promote, was love to see that hotel on that parking lot property, a lakefront hotel, 4 or 5 stories with a rooftop restaurant. Obviously, the parking lot, we have to replace parking, so the parking lot that would be closest to the post office, we would convert to a new parking lot to support the development, and would love to see this lot here, the one closest to City Hall, be a ring of retail centers or retail shops with restaurants and that, with 3 or 4 stories of downtown living apartments on it. That's going to create a great amount of investment, a great amount of activity into Eustis. More residents into the community, more economic development activity. We're confident we can make that happen.
Can I say something? I've lived through this.
Yeah.
2 different terms. This is the 3rd term. And we've always walked away from it. And then have been so sorry because nothing still happens. We need to control our destiny. It's our downtown. I would, after it's happened twice before in my term, and we walk away, and then it's not a year later that somebody's saying, well, why didn't you buy Waterman? Well, because, we're waiting for them to develop it, and we're going to try and help them. It hasn't worked so far, so I would like to see us control what we're going to do down here. And yes, we have control because of development services, but nothing is happening over there, guys, and it's been that way. When did they leave? It's been that way so long. Some people only know it as a park. So That's my thought.
Oh, here, I'm sorry.
No, it's just going to reiterate again.
Yeah.
Good.
An important thing to remember is that the $1 million that we pay for the parking lot is going to, and I can't remember, what's the foundation's name? The Lake Community Foundation. The Lake Community Foundation's charter requires that that money be invested back into Eustis for healthcare programs. So what we're doing is not only are we investing in Eustis and trying to make this, we're funding an organization whose sole purpose and has not had the capital to implement health programs in the community. So who's to say that the foundation won't take that $1 million that we've bought for that property and start implementing health care programs in the community, because that's the goal of their charter, of their organization. So we're not bailing out the foundation. We are empowering that foundation and capitalizing that foundation by exchanging cash for property for them to start implementing and completing the mission that they were chartered to do.
Ms. Gale, did you have a question, ma'am?
Yes, I do, and I hope you can hear me.
Yes, ma'am.
I understand what you're saying, Mr. Nyberg. My concern is we already have a downtown with empty storefronts. Nothing is being done about that. Now you're saying that you're going to bring more retail in this area to help with the CRA. Downtown is in the CRA. In the stores downtown, how many do we have?
We don't
Today.
We don't have enough.
Okay.
We don't have enough.
But there are spaces downtown today.
There are what? I'm sorry, Gail.
Spaces available.
Not many. I don't think there's
But
any.
what is downtown today? There is nothing. I mean, you just said it. It's not many.
No, I'm saying we have a good mix of businesses. We don't have the volume we need to make us more successful. I think by saying we don't have anything downtown really is kind of a disservice to the folks at the Peddler's Wagon or Tilly, who's investing now in his 4th restaurant into downtown Eustis. And
When I say not having anything, excuse me for cutting you off, I said retail, not restaurants.
well, restaurants are retail, but we've got the Salty Mare, Peddler's Wagon. We have 3 jewelry stores downtown.
Okay,
We have,
but everything closes up early.
I'm going to go ahead and cut this off because we're not going to go anywhere. We're spinning our wheels. I think that we need to further this conversation, but I am not going to go away from this without the audience to be heard, and then we'll move to the next item in the CRA. Is anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this? Because we're going to have to come back and revisit. Chris, I know you're here specifically for this, I believe, so come on up, sir. And I do appreciate everybody that's sitting in this audience tonight for coming.
Cress Munsme, 13600 Grand Island Shores Road in the county, but I own property in the city. I've served on the same commission with Commissioner LaHoop Smith and Commissioner Holland that dealt with this issue 10 years ago. The folks that are with the foundation and the partnership are very honorable people. They've been in this community for a long, long time, and they work to make it a better community. I think that I would suggest to you all that you play back this video sometime in the next week, because I think you've all done a pretty good job of analyzing the situation. I understand Commissioner LaHoop Smith's concerns about taking control of the city, but every single thing that the city can do, you can still do and not have to buy the property. The fact of the matter is, if they would like to sell the property, and you have folks that are interested in building here, you have an economic development individual whose job is to make that happen, to bring those parties together, so that you don't have to put the city at risk for $3 million. This might be a different day, and it might not. You know, Commissioner Smith works in the stock market group. She's seen a lot of her clients lose half their wealth in the last 4 days, 5 days, or 6 days. And nobody knows where we're going to be on the other side of this. That property that sits out there next week may be worth $1.5 million altogether. There may be no developers out there tomorrow that have any cash to buy anything in Eustis. Tilly may not be here next week. These are decisions that I think you should put off. You mentioned that you were going to do that, Mayor. I think it's a good decision. But unfortunately, this stuff comes up at a really bad time, and it's an uncertain time. Having control over this, everybody in the Tri-County area wishes they were in Eustis to have that much property with nothing on it to develop and do something with. It is exactly what will make Eustis successful. How you go about doing it, whether you have to buy or you don't. But I would just suggest that everybody pull back a little bit, given where we are, think through this, and I would suggest that you all take a look at the video because you all did a heck of a good job tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Anyone else? Daniel, yes, please.
So a $3 million decision is a pretty big deal. My name's Daniel DiVinanzo, and I have been in downtown Eustis 25 years. I also was on the board that reviewed the reuse potential of the Waterman Hospital. I was on VNN, Village News Network, when our state senator proposed that we turn it into a nursing home, which would essentially have 145 part-time, partly skilled employees versus the 1,100 that Florida Hospital had when they left. The reuse of the property was going to cost, to redevelop it, $185 a foot. So it was torn down. We've sat with the property vacant 15 years, and I want to tell you something, that in overview, I've built a 3-story building here that's appraised at $1 million. We pay just under $30,000 a year taxes besides the other franchise fees we paid at city, and it sits on 4,000 square feet. We have another building, 5-story, $2 million, that's going to sit on the same footprint, 4,000 square feet. When you look at the future and having control of what Eustis is and the vision that you want to have, here's the problem. There has been a disconnect for decades between the owners of the property, the city, and developers. How do I know that? Because I've been part of 3 groups that tried to get something going down here. $3 million, we'd all like to pay less. But if you want to have control over your future, and if you want to kickstart it, people that want to come in here that have money have to know who they're dealing with. They have to know this is an opportunity, and what can we put together here? So you talked about the hotel. I'm just going to reiterate. They've met with me 5 times. They're constantly pushing the envelope. They've met with me because they know I'm a local builder. They know that they also know my background at Walt Disney World for 10 years. I did 6,000 hotel rooms. They have asked me repeatedly where this is going, and of course, dealing with the city and the property. The CRA and the funding has all come to the table. It's all been part of the action. You have to think about it. You want to have a future of what something looks like. For somebody to put together even a site plan, you're talking about minimally $15,000. And then when you get into the engineering aspect, you're going to spend $80,000 for one block. So if somebody's going to try to piecemeal this thing, then it comes back to, so the partners have 2 blocks. Well, let's say they can't sell 2 blocks and they decide to piecemeal it and sell where you can build one building and another building, which, by the way, in the past they proposed. So which building gets built first? And what do we tear up to put in the infrastructure to build the first building? And where are we going to have people park when we're only talking about one building versus a master plan? You see, when the city takes control of the property, we can put together a master plan. When the city takes control of the property, now you're dealing with an entity, and all the cards are open. Everything's transparent. And they've talked about the marketing opportunities. We've got a very aggressive CRA plan here. And just so you know, the deals that we've worked on and put together, they have all been about the property, the project, developing the funds that actually support the CRA making the investment. So I'll give you a case in point, potentially, on the hotel. Ron Nybert throws out $1 million. Let's say they come in and we're going to spend $14 million and we're going to ask for $1 million that you're going to throw in, let's say, one of the blocks. We want you to throw in a block. Well, in some people's eyes, that might be overwhelming, but of course you see the risk. $14 million, and you're going to have a taxable value of $200,000 a year, the CRA for the balance of your 25 years, is it 25 years now or 24? 25, that's $5 million. You're going to collect $5 million on giving away a $1 million parcel. So here's the thing. 15 years I have been trying to get there. By the way, Cress Munsame, I was glad he spoke before me. If he would have stayed, I would have said it then. He's the guy that blocked me when I had my 3 votes. What was it, 8 years ago? Because we actually had a deal put together, and he said, well, we have a developer that's that submitted a site plan to the city, which, by the way, did not meet any of the city's design guidelines. And he said, so why would we ever want to enter into the development business when we've got a developer that's submitted a site plan? So what happened is it got shut down. Mike Holland, you were on that meeting. And, so here's what's happened. It's going to happen again and again. 15 years, guys, it's sat vacant. You want to kickstart this. I'm going to give credit to a man in this room, Jack Prickett. Jack Prickett sold Rick Nelson and facilitated through myself the property where we built Wells Fargo Advisors, the first new building in downtown Eustis in 15 years, and that also included the property where we built the McDonald building, the 3-story apartment building where Edward Jones is. Jack facilitated that deal because he brought the right players together. Then Jack also facilitated the deal that allowed us to get McDonald to connect to Grove Street, because I don't know if how many of you remember, the McDonald didn't go through. It was one continuous parcel. And if you think about the development aspect, it makes it very difficult with regard to entrance and exit of the property. So a vision. The vision is a hotel on the block where you currently have parking. The vision is on the parcel that is directly to the north of City Hall. You notice how the terrain drops down significantly from the high side at Grove, and it goes down to a much lower side at McDonald. People enter the apron there at McDonald for parking. The property lends itself to a parking garage at the lower level with structures above it. But you want to know what that takes? That takes a development plan. That takes somebody having some vision and putting the whole thing together. And then if either one developer comes in or the other. Now, marketing-wise, I came here, there was one occupied residential unit in downtown Eustis in 1994. One residential unit occupied. Do you know where it was? Above the Humane Society. Am I not correct, Jack? All right. Every single apartment in these old buildings has been developed. There is a demand. We don't have one vacancy in downtown Eustis. You're on a 7,000-acre inland sailing lake that has a spectacular sunset view. You've got a sailing club. You've got a revitalized marina. You're putting $2 million in your lakefront. If you walk through and you took pictures, and guys, I've got the pictures of what Eustis looked like 20 years ago and what it looks like today. It's been a massive transformation. But I will tell you, it's come at a cost. And it's come at a few people stepping up to do the work and making it happen. You're right at the cusp. And this is when the partnership needs to happen. I've done what I can do here. And I know that it makes you hesitant. And you certainly are representing the taxpayers. I want you to look at the tax base, by the way. You know where the core of your tax revenue is? Right downtown. I know how much I'm paying. Tens of thousands of dollars per year. I think it's almost $100,000. Besides what I'm paying for water downtown. I know you want to break me off. I'll wrap it up. It's $3 million. I'm fervent about it. I've hung in here with you. I need you, the idea that we're going to come back and renegotiate, you can potentially try to make that work out. Well, what are they going to do with that appraisal? You think the sellers are going to go, well, out of the goodness of our hearts, we decided we're going to take another, $200,000 hit? $300,000 hit? In the scheme of things, what's $300,000? I'm just telling you. I was behind the scenes when the city of Mount Dora lost the post office. I was behind the scenes. I could tell you the details. They could kick themselves because it was $1,000 a month different that the private developer came in and bought the post office up from them. we're going to be crying for parking, folks. You want redevelopment? Tilly's got 4 restaurants open. He woke the whole city up. Look at what happens with parking here. We've got to have some future vision. And I don't mean to, to be suggesting that you're short-sighted. I understand the due diligence with regard to the taxpayers' money. You got to think about it's CRA funds. This is self-funding. Is there risk? Absolutely. Why haven't developers come in and do it? If you decide to have another meeting, I'm going to sit down and I'll give you spreadsheets on construction costs, and I'll show you exactly why they're not doing it. And why is a hotel willing to do it now? Because Eustis actually has a destination to offer. We did not have that.
Thank you, Daniel.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Anyone else? All right, yes, ma'am. Is it on this? All right. All right. If you'll hand it to Mary, please. Thank you, ma'am.
I answer this one more question. Will this be open to all kinds of developers who want to come in and offer you suggestions about things they want to do, or is it all going to be local?
It'll be whoever comes to us with a project that makes sense. We can make a decision.
That's good.
And just one more thing. Dan, even though you're impassioned, it made sense for the other side. If for 15 years it's not been marketed to be able to do what you're suggesting, then why does the city have to bail them out? That's what bothers me. It seems like we're going
to stop right
So-
now because we've got one more item on this. We're already into our other meeting time.
Do you want me to read this? There's
just-
only, the rest of it is,
If you'd like to read it real
I
quick,
can read
Mary.
just the.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. It is from Kimberly Powis and Melanie Botorf, both from Eustis. We both oppose the option for the purchase of the 3 lots in order to build the community conference sailing center for these reasons. Number one, due to the coronavirus. I know, I'm just reading. And you can speak to that when I'm finished. Number one, due to the coronavirus, this meeting should have been postponed due to poor voter turnout and no voice of watching from home and can't comment. Number two, we want Eustis to remain the small family-friendly town that it is. It will bring into the downtown area more foot traffic, vehicle traffic, and the need to reinforce the speed limit and even possibly lower it. Number three, as far as conference meeting rooms are concerned, the current one has a capacity of 250 seated and 400 if not. The City of Eustis website lists 7 locations for rent, see attached. Art Room, Aquatic Center, Community Center, Garden Room, Lakeview Room, Service Center, and the Women's Club. There are other options like lake receptions and others I have attached. There are current buildings not being used or simply neglected that could be purchased and renovated for conferences. Number 4, there is no need for a hotel when there are 11 within 2 to 7 miles of Eustis. There is no demand for it. Number 5, is there really a demand for a new sailing center? I think it would be for a select few people and not in the interest of the community as a whole. Why can't the existing one be improved and kept at the same location? Number 6, as far as a new boat ramp is concerned, it will also bring more unwanted traffic that will create a bottleneck of stopping, slowing down traffic on Bay. It will be a nuisance. We already have enough traffic flowing through Eustis from the surrounding cities. Number 7, there will be an additional tax burden on the Eustis homeowners. It may seem like a small amount to you, but it is an unwanted tax burden. Number 8 is contradictory about making Eustis safe due to increased police and security. This is not true due to increased influx of outsiders and the need for the increased patrol. What then would be the difference? Number 9, I ran out of time to finish this, but where will George Fast and the Carnival be held? The classic car show we all love, First Friday, and so forth.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for writing that. A lot of that has nothing to do with the purchase of this property, but we will take that under advisement. I appreciate that. Mr. Nybert, if you would, depending on where we go as a country and as a city, if you would get that on an agenda as quickly as possible in April so we can have other discussions about this property. And if I could encourage Tom and you to go ahead and maybe schedule independent meetings with the commission to maybe show a vision that you might not be able to speak about in public tonight. and understand a little bit more about what's in front. I would encourage you to probably encourage Ms. Gale and Evan as well as part of the CRA board. Okay? Is that okay with the commission? Thank you so much.
To our third Thursday in April?
That will be the next regularly scheduled CRA board meeting.
Well, we moved them to quarterly.
Yes, I know. That's why I'm saying, that is our next regularly scheduled one, would be April. Second meeting in April.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Yes. Yes. Tom, 1.3.
So we have a request to enter into a developer's agreement. So this is a developer agreement with Joseph Matella. So history, the properties were assembled through 2016 through 2017. They were purchased by Joseph Matella. Mr. Matella and his representatives have been working with the city to develop plans for the site. While Joseph Matella couldn't be here today, Andrew Matella here is here representing the owner. So the planning framework project is consistent with the East CRA master plan, the 2016 redevelopment plan, and it's also consistent with the city's land development regulations. So Oakwood Apartments, it's near the northeast corner of Glover Street, and I'm going to advance real quickly here. This is the project site. It's just east of Family Dollar. It's just north of the cemetery, near the northeast corner of Glover and Orange Avenue. Going back, it's 4 two-story market-rate apartment buildings, total of 14 townhome-style units. There'll be 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath units, and total square footage, including garages, are going to be about 1,774 square feet. The estimated private investment is over $2 million, and the developer has said, but for the CRA assistance, this project would not happen because the market rents don't support the investment. So again, there's the location, north side of Orange Avenue. So the developer commits to developing the $2 million project. The developer commits to getting all their certificates of occupancy by January 1st, 2022. And the developer and property have to maintain taxable status. CRA commits to reimbursing the developers for statutory eligible expenses. There's 2 reimbursements. There's a base reimbursement, which is 50% of the first $7,500 in new taxes generated. That is for a max of 10 years and a max total of $37,500. Then there's an additional reimbursement, which is 75% of any new taxes generated above the $7,500. So that is also a max of 10 years and a max total of $75,000. So when you combine both the base and the additional reimbursements, over 10 years, it's limited to $112,500. And it's also limited to a total of 5.5% of project costs. So how does the CRA finance this? The project basically pays for itself by generating its own incentive, generating additional tax dollars. The developer will pay their annual taxes and then get a rebate on those taxes from the city. So the CRA cash flow isn't impacted in any way. In order to get the full $112,500 over 10 years, the developer needs to generate $175,000, so it actually improves CRA cash flow. The agreement incentivizes the developer to overperform and get those values up. The CRA is protected in that the building has to get built for anyone to get anything. There's a 10-year cap, there's a $112,500 cap, and there's also a 5.5% cap. So the CRA is protected in many ways. So the summary, this is exactly what the CRA is for. It's consistent with all of our planning framework. It facilitates private investment and new construction in the area. The assistance is paid for the project itself, and the assistance is specific to statutory requirements, and then the agreement protects the CRA and the city. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions, and as I mentioned, a representative of the developer is here.
Any questions for Tom on this? Ms. Gale, any questions? All right. Anyone in the audience have any questions or concerns with this? Tom, what do you need the commission to do with this tonight?
We need a vote to approve the developer's agreement.
All right. Ms. Gale?
My only question is about the traffic flow on Orange Avenue.
And I think what Tom would tell us is that before anything is built, they'll have to do a complete traffic study before we give final approval.
And they've been through the Development Services Department, and so they're following that process.
Okay?
I just, what does it mean when you say the market rents does not support the development?
So what the developer has said is, here's what the market will bear for a unit of this size. Here's what we can get for rent. And when you compare that to how much they're spending to build the project, what they're saying is the rents don't support the project. At these rents and this construction cost, we're not building the project. We need the CRA to close the gap and make it profitable. And so that's that's the purpose of the CRA. The purpose of the purpose of the CRA is to close the gap and make a project that's not workable. And so that's what that means.
Mary, you need a consensus or a vote?
No, we need a vote. This is actually a resolution. It's
Okay.
CRA Resolution 20-04.
Okay.
Would you like me to read the title?
If you wouldn't mind, please.
I will be happy to. As soon as I find my cheat sheet. I had to make me one, too. Somewhere. This is CRA Resolution 20-04, a resolution of the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Eustis, known as the Downtown and Easttown Redevelopment Agency, Lake County, Florida, approving and ratifying a developer agreement and making findings and determinations of fact and law pursuant to Chapter 163, Part 3, Florida statutes.
Board members, we have before us CRA Resolution 20-04. What's the will of this group?
I make motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Not hearing any. Roll call, please.
Mr. Moran?
Aye.
Ms. Aliberti?
Aye.
Vice Chair Lee?
Aye.
Ms. LaHoop Smith? Aye. Mr. Holland?
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, Tom. At this time, that ends the CRA meeting. We're going to take a 5-minute break so Mary can get the recordings ready, and we'll go right into our commission meeting.